Welcome to the Truckers and Nerds podcast, where we connect real-life truckers with freight tech companies to discuss technological innovations in the trucking industry. The Truckers and Nerds podcast is hosted by Tobenna CEO and founder of CloudTrucks. This podcast is brought to you by CloudTrucks.
I can go ahead and get started. So we wanted to do kind of a special episode of the Truckers and Nerds podcast here on Callin. And basically yesterday or 2 days ago, we launched a number of new features. We launched business intelligence feature on CloudTrucks, and then we launched multiple product lines, virtual carrier, Flex, and CT Cash. So I thought it would be great to just get a number of people together and talk about what we launched, what it takes to actually do these types of product launches, especially for an early stage startup. And then we can take some questions if there are any. So maybe I can give a little bit of background, but before I do that, we should just go with intros. So on stage with me are George, who's my co-founder and kind of led the engineering effort on launching Flex and CT Cash. Leo, who is the head of data science and led the effort on business intelligence. And Akiko, who runs design here at CloudTrucks and kind of led all of the design efforts across all of these different products. So let me take a step back and just talk a little bit about CloudTrucks and why we decided to launch these new features. So at its core, what we're building at CloudTrucks is a business management solution for truck drivers. And the way we view things is a truck driver is ultimately a small business owner that generates anywhere from $180,000 to $220,000 in revenue per year. And like any other small business, they need a lot of help and they need the right set of tools and the right set of technology to be able to do their work efficiently and effectively. And so we strive to provide those tools to them to empower these business owners to be more effective and to make more money with fewer headaches. And when we started the company, we started in one configuration where we couldn't work with every owner-operator who wanted to work with CloudTrucks. A lot of them wanted to keep their own authority, which means that they could already move freight by themselves, but they still wanted access to our tools. So we decided to build all of these features to basically expand the number of people who could get access to the CloudTrucks tools. So I'll just pause there for a moment, and I think it'll be great to chat about the first feature that we launched, which is business intelligence. And Leo, I think it'll be great to hear from you kind of what that experience was like building and launching the business intelligence feature.
Yeah, I can talk about the BI tool for a little bit. I think where it came out of was this realization that ourselves, the data team internally, we're computing all of these really useful metrics for internal use of our drivers. And there was almost like a light bulb moment where we were thinking, hey, like this stuff would be great to share directly with our drivers, right? Give them access to all this great data that we look at day to day. And so that was kind of like the genesis of the BI tool. It's meant to show a lot of the same stuff that we look at internally as the data team. And I think that realization is also probably one of the biggest technical challenges that we faced in building it, because what we were building was essentially an analytics platform, and we were doing it with a very small and a very scrappy team and in a pretty short amount of time. And I think trying to think about how to talk about this, and there's almost like this technological leap between having, say, an internal dashboard and being able to have maybe your CEO come and send you a Slack message and say, hey, Leo, there's this field that doesn't look quite right. Can we talk about it? Can we hash out what's going on here? And then, you guys have a call and maybe you fix what's wrong kind of on the fly. There's a difference between that and in a customer facing product where all the metrics kind of just have to work, and they also have to work across a wide range of users too. It's not just one or two people looking at a dashboard. And so, luckily, we were able to leverage some pretty useful open source tools, and also some ideas from kind of like other industry products that were out there, and some great documentation and papers, and cobble something together that so far so good. It seems to have been working pretty well.
Nice. So for context, right, with the BI tool, customers are able to see in real time exactly how much revenue they've generated over the past few weeks or past few months, how much of that is what their costs are, so they can input different costs, and then what their net revenue has been during that period of time. So when you're talking about having this data show up in real time, can you just expand on that a little bit? So as customers are generating revenue, are they able to just see in real time exactly what's going on?
Yeah, exactly. That was what we were thinking was going to be one of the the big benefits of this, as process data on our own back end and realize or finalize the drivers making revenue. We can show it directly in the dashboard, and we can do quite cool things like, say, maybe we haven't quite finalized the revenue. Maybe the driver has just delivered their delivery, and we're still trying to figure out the payment or the verification. Well, we can actually show that as pending revenue, right? So we can do a little bit of prediction and forecasting as well. And then kind of like the other part that you touched on is being able to get more driver data and insight, and to kind of turn that back around. So as drivers either input their goal for the week or maybe their recurring expenses, well, we can aggregate that all up together to really give a sense of, okay, we think you're golden, right? You're gonna have some money left over to save, or hey, based on where you're driving and where your expenses are at, you might really want to try to squeeze in that one extra load or delivery.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. And Akiko, so I know as we were kind of working on this over the past few months, there was always this design challenge that you had to think through. It's one thing to generate the data and be able to show that data in real time. It's another thing to actually display it in a way that's easy for a customer base that's on the move to be able to look at it and understand what they're looking at. I was wondering if you could talk about that process.
Yes. I can talk about this from my design perspective. The problem we wanted to solve with BI tool is when the driver is doing the job, hauling the load and completing the job, they seem like they are making tons of money. But the trucking business comes with various expenses. And we wanted to give drivers this holistic view on their business to help them really understand how they are doing and become a lot more business savvy. Experienced drivers seems to be always on top of it. So this BI tool will only enhance their thinking and help daily business. But then especially for the new drivers, this will be a great tool so they can really look at their business, like how they are doing. And the challenge we had was, it's a huge project, and how can we break it down to smaller chunks and release so we can get this into drivers' hands, but it's seamless and helpful enough for them without making it too confusing. And I learned a lot about intricacy of data and information we display and how we can manage all those different edge cases, because we have so many different scenarios and types of users we need to cover. Like solo driver in a solo fleet, that's kind of a happy path and easy case. But then there are other types of users, solo driver with another fleet members, or non-driver admin, non-admin driver. And then all those drivers will come different status. If they are onboarding, what would we display? If they are active, but they never have done any job completed, then what do we display? All those scenarios we had to cover just ended up like a massive project. And UI wise, how can we display all this data in a simplistic manner? And the data visualization, we don't want to be misleading or confusing. All sorts of cases we needed to cover. So that was the challenge we had. And also thinking about this feature as a little more ahead. How can we encompass all other future features that we want to launch, so we don't have to redesign everything every time when we introduce new thing. So that was another challenge.
There's something you touched on there that I think is really important. The difference between an owner-operator who has been in the business for a long time and understands all of their metrics and their costs versus someone who's becoming an owner-operator for the first time. And I remember we have an internal Facebook group with our customers, and I remember seeing this on a number of cases where someone comes on with us, they've just become an owner-operator for the first time, and they're asking everyone else, like, hey, what do you track? How much should I be planning to make? How should I be thinking about my costs? And I think that's really what one of the key benefits of the BI tool. Akiko, as you were going through this design exercise and trying to kind of take something really complex and make it as simple as possible, did you take inspiration from any other products or any other industries out there? I think people are always a little bit curious about the design process and just starting from a blank slate for these types of products.
That's an interesting question. I thought about this in a way of like goal setting tool, like maybe your health metrics. Maybe you have a weight you want to reach, or like maybe some fintech product. Maybe there's an investment tool. It can be actually anything, but it's some sort of like how people's mind work. There's a goal. There's something you want to reach, and the displayment of those information. I think that's how I was looking at it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So maybe this question is for Leo or Akiko. Maybe Leo, we can go to you first and then to Akiko. What's next? Are there any features on the BI side that you're kind of thinking about? I mean, this is our homepage now on the app. So are there things that are now unlocked by the fact that we've actually released this new feature?
Yeah, there's tons of things. Maybe I'll just touch on a couple of them. I mean, you mentioned Tobenna, kind of like this question of, what are other folks doing? What are other drivers doing? I think there's definitely a lot of potential to put some of that in here. So in terms of, hey, other drivers that are driving along the same routes as you, maybe this has been their experience through metrics. So highlighting a little bit of the benefit of being part of the CloudTrucks community in that sense. I think the other direction that we can go is like forwards in time, like forecasting. There's a lot of fun work that we've been thinking of and planning on doing in terms of what could be potential revenue next week, next month, based on kind of what some of our data scientists have been seeing in terms of market movements and things like that. And I think besides that, the other big thing that we've been talking about is a little bit less strictly revenue and payments data and a little bit more performance data. So these are things like making it very easy to see what are your hours of service have been like over the past week. Maybe even this is how many miles you've been driven, fuel expenses, things like that. I think that's a short list with a lot of other ideas planned after that.
Yeah, forecasting sounds amazing. Can't wait for that. Akiko, did you have anything that you're kind of looking forward to with the BI dashboard?
Yeah, there are so many, because this is literally the foundation of the business intelligence tool. And there are lots of things we can do, and there are some already in the pipeline. One is the fuel report feature that user can report their fuel purchase in app, and that goes directly into expense metric, basically. That's one, and they can request reports through the BI tool, and other stuff like safety score, performance score can be displayed on the BI dashboard. Performance trend history, that's also another item we are working on. And then I mentioned this is a business tool, but it doesn't mean it need to be dry, and we want to add some delightfulness to this feature. Maybe potentially we can display some celebration message on that page. Maybe when the driver completes the first job, we can celebrate that. Or maybe 1 year anniversary of the driver, we can celebrate that. So I just want the user come to this dashboard and feel good about how they've been doing and how they've been successful. So business intelligence tool can be very delightful feature.
I love it. Delightfulness. I am falling in love with CloudTrucks product all over again. Thank you for that, Akiko. So maybe this is a good time to kind of talk about the other things that we released. So Flex and CT Cache. And in a sense, this was almost like a relaunching of CloudTrucks and going from being a virtual carrier to having a full suite of solutions for different owner-operators. So George, I would love to just hear kind of your experience leading the charge on building this from the ground up.
For sure. I think it's definitely very reminiscent of the initial launch of the first kind of CloudTrucks experience. I think at a high level, the big challenge with Flex was just figuring out, all right, we already have this kind of ecosystem of broker integration, schedule optimizer, and the RPA needed to kind of streamline this job lifecycle for drivers. How do we make this tooling more generic so it works for users with whatever they're currently set up with? I guess an example of this is previously we had a single kind of ELD provider, which allows us to kind of know where drivers are, to get a sense of their feasibility and streamline the process of them booking jobs. We're able to integrate with our different brokers, and so whenever we took action downstream, booking a job, it was automatically assigned to our carrier. But then with Flex, we can't do that. So we kind of have to meet the driver wherever they are with let's say if they have a separate ELD provider, or if they're only integrated with a handful of brokers, then how do we actually plug into what they currently have, these third-party tools, and then make the ecosystem of products we have work for them? And so, I think that was kind of the big challenge, is figuring out all right, we have this tooling, we have these integrations. How do we kind of make that more generic? And so we basically kind of had to rethink what a lot of these integrations look like and what they would look like in a world where we're not the only ones interfacing with them, but we're kind of acting on behalf of our drivers to interface with them. And so this means kind of extending our ELD offering, revamping our integrations with our broker partners to figure out, okay, what does a platform integration look like? How can we book for our drivers? And then for our RPA, how do we streamline the process of plugging into the tools that our drivers had set up so that we can kind of operate on behalf of them? So if they have, let's say, Convoy, Uber, and they come to CloudTrucks, we can plug into what they have. They can use Optimizer to plan their schedules with the brokers they're set up with. And then our customers can book, get paid with the ecosystem, and basically plug into what they have. And so that was kind of a big part of the engineering thinking with Flex. And then I guess with Flex, there was a lot of teasing apart this assumption that all of our customers are under our authority. And so I think that did a good job in kind of laying the groundwork for building Cash. And so luckily the two kind of complement each other in that sense.
Yeah, there's I think there's this one point that you made over and over, and it's really good to hit on this. The fact that we were essentially moving, well, first off with broker integrations, we were moving from a one-to-many world to a many-to-many world, where previously, there was essentially one entity. That entity was CloudTrucks, booking loads with all of our broker partners. And so it was a little bit easier to kind of manage this in terms of those integrations. And then internally, we could assign these jobs to the right drivers who actually wanted to take them. And now we're moving to a world where, there could be an infinite number of customers who are trying to book these jobs, and we're trying to make those requests on behalf of all of them. So it's now a many-to-many world, and the amount of work and thinking that has to go into that. And I remember, as we were kind of working on this project, one of the things we had to think about a lot was also beefing up security even more. I don't know how much we want to talk about security actually, but I know that was something that we had to seriously consider as well. George, we've been talking about Flex for a really long time. And I remember going into the project as we were kind of scoping things out and thinking about launching it. We started to realize that this was going to be a massive undertaking that was going to affect the entire customer lifecycle, from onboarding to booking, like you just mentioned, and everything else. Can you talk about how long it took to actually build all of these things and ultimately ship this new product line? Because I think it's not very common for a company to ship a new product line, a little over a year from launching their first.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think timing feels kind of fuzzy because, from when we actually kickstarted the project, I want to say this was probably sometime in April. So I guess that brings it to where right now. I guess it brings it to
5-6 months from when you started writing code.
I think Oh no! Oh yeah, sorry. I guess from when we really started, kind of taking on as all right, here's a project spec, and then initial designs and thinking what this is going to look like. I think from writing code, it's probably 4 months. Yeah, just really kind of building out these integrations. So how do we actually rebuild our integrations? How do we make sure that we're securely collecting this info and building out yield integration? So I want to say it was 4 months, really just this huge kind of engineering effort.
That's a lot of time, and I know a lot of people were involved throughout that time period. Akiko, I kind of want to go to you and talk about the design challenge here as well, because the really tiny design team had to take on a number of really large projects at the same time. So from onboarding to changes that needed to be made for this to work. I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about what this experience was like and what the challenges were building and shipping this.
Yeah, I want to just comment on the timeline, because I feel like we've been talking about the Flex product line forever. Honestly, it feels like more than a year, because I think inspiration came from, there are so many drivers who have their own authority already and experience. They want to keep that authority. How can we serve those type of drivers? So it's interesting like that. The timeline is very fuzzy for me. But I go back to your question about the design challenge here. Maybe I should start talking about onboarding part and then the general feature of Flex and Cash.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, to that point, there was a huge kind of effort around onboarding. I guess Akiko's about to discuss, because I guess with Flex, we really had to redefine what onboarding onto CloudTrucks means and what the onboarding experience is.
Yeah, it's interesting. The onboarding flow for Flex and Cash customers are a lot lighter than virtual carrier users. It's so much less than the other, like our existing product line of virtual carrier. But there were lots of stuff to figure out in terms of legal and what the requirement documents to collect. That was actually a big part of this onboarding flow, which was the Holly from the BizOp team helped greatly on that. And then she gave us all sorts of requirements, what we need to include in the onboarding flow. And in terms of design of it is also interesting to discuss here. Prior to Flex and Cash, we were already working on the new onboarding flow for virtual carrier customers. And we already knew this Flex and Cash was on the horizon. So challenge was that how can we make the onboarding flow, its design system and the paradigm, how can we make that work for all product lines? Because we need to move fast and it doesn't make sense to build a different type of onboarding flow. So that was the major challenge on design team. And then one uniqueness to the Flex onboarding flow is this linking brokers and load board part, which the George also mentioned, which can be very disjointed experience potentially. And how can we make it seamless, even if it can never be 100% airtight? And I think we are like incorporating those instant validation. Engineering team has been built, so that's helped for the onboarding flow. And then the general features, between Flex and virtual carriers, the driver's experience is almost identical. It's pretty much same. But because there are clear difference that the drivers of the Flex product line would have authority and they would have to have their own accounts in brokers and platform, and they need to link those accounts to CloudTrucks. And, that's 2 points I made, but then there are various cases, a little bit different between Flex and virtual carrier customers. And those small differences has cascading effect on the user experience. And it's always like, end up dealing with quite many touch points, and that's became massive project. And then, so figuring out what's the use case and the scenarios we really need to cover in order to make the this product line launch happen. Yeah, so that's what I want to comment on.
Yeah, it's also interesting when you talk about new kind of, it's like you're going down this path of building this new product, and then you start to uncover new things that you also have to build and new considerations that you just didn't need to have previously. I remember one of those for me was when we were having discussions about brokers, right? So like you said, the experience for a virtual carrier customer and a Flex customer is very identical, but there's one major difference, which is whose authority are you under? And to date, because every one of our customers has been running under the CloudTrucks authority, by design, we have to approve every single job that flows through the system. And now with Flex, you're running under your own authority. You can move whatever loads you want to move. But because you've signed an instance pay agreement with us, we need to make sure that the broker that you're booking this load with is one that's been approved by us. So I remember at some point as we were kind of racing down this new product development cycle, and we realized that, we actually need to build this real-time approval process for brokers. And then this becomes an additional feature that like if we weren't doing this launch, maybe we would have decided to work on that months from now, but we had to actually pull it forward in order for the launch to work and for customers to have a great experience and not need to call people to find out whether a broker will be approved for instant pay or not approved for instant pay. So that was definitely an interesting experience for me, just seeing how, when you have these large projects, you can try to cut them down as much as possible, but then there are going to be new things that you have to really think about. One question I had for, I think this is really for anyone on the call, but maybe we can start with Akiko, is I know that I definitely drove people crazy throughout this process. I've mentioned this internally a number of times. How did you deal with all of the craziness of designing and putting these things out as fast as possible under these really tight deadlines? And how did you also manage the stress?
Are you asking us how we dealt with you?
Yes, effectively.
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely thought like timeline was a little crazy. It felt like a little nutty, but I understood how we came to this product line makes sense, because I've been following the anecdotes, why we are losing a lead. So in terms of that, I didn't have any problem launching the product lines. But I think the scheduling, the timeline was literally crazy. But I also understood you wanted to push the team.
Well, they say you have to be just a little bit crazy to get things moving. So I think there's a saying that's something like that. Leo, I wonder if you wanted to.
Yeah. I just wanted to follow up. I think like Akiko had a really good point. Just one of the things that I think has always felt pretty cool to me about not just the people on this call, but like all of us, is we all do seem to kind of like be rowing in the same direction. Like I think everyone feels very strongly kind of, we want to support our customers as best as possible to, be able to do what they do best. Right. And I think like that, like drive and that desire has really helped like deal with some of the twists and turns, right? The BI tool now has to, as Akiko mentioned, like support this case or support that case. Well, cool. I mean, that's what our customers need, right? So, it's definitely a lot of learning to be kind of like flexible and think on your feet, right? And I think we're all getting better at that. But I think also the kind of like the end goal that everyone has in sight is a big motivator.
Yeah, definitely. George?
Yeah. I think to kind of touch on what Leo mentioned, I would say that, while there was a lot of stress and like the timeline was like super tight, I think there was a lot of excitement, from the team in terms of like just seeing, I guess, what we could actually get done in this like really ambitious time. And I think something that kind of kept things exciting was just really just the velocity at which like things are kind of getting shipped, right? Like each like week or sprint as things really got shipped and new experiences were built. It was really kind of exciting to see that delta. And so it was really just exciting to see, okay, like while this is super ambitious and might not be realistic, it's like in this past 2 weeks, like this is what we've already built. What can we build in the next kind of couple weeks or month? And so there was just this continuous like excitement, which I think did a good job counterbalancing the stress of like the reality of what we're actually trying to undertake.
Yeah. And, I think I can't say it any better. Just being able to kind of understand and now even see the effects of a product that you build out there in the real world has definitely been a huge it's been a huge boost for me personally. I know for the rest of the team, it's great to see kind of how things are used when they're put in the hands of our customers. I think when the first set of customers started getting BI tool some weeks ago and started playing around with it and giving feedback. That was great. Now seeing customers being able to sign up for Flex, in some cases, people who have always wanted to work with CloudTrucks but couldn't previously. It just makes you feel good about the thing that you're working on. So I definitely agree with you. And then the last point I kind of want to make here is, it takes a village to really build and land anything like this. So, the entire CloudTrucks team was involved in making this happen in one way or another, from engineering to design to operations to the BizOps team and helping to keep things on track, to the marketing team, making sure we had a successful launch. So I think that's a good place to leave this. This has been fun. It's been good kind of doing a retro in public. And thanks to everyone for joining us, and thanks to the team for all that you do. If you want to learn more about CloudTrucks, we have pages on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. We also have the Truckers and Nerds podcast on all major podcasting platforms, and the Truckers and Nerds page on Facebook, where we'll be interacting with folks in the freight tech space as well as truck drivers, and making sure that we're all kind of having conversations together and moving the industry forward together. But thanks George, Leo, Akiko, and thanks to the rest of the team. Thanks everyone for joining.